all of you. Sorry for the, I guess we are in the midst of needing to be patient, and more with this starting of this class, we started with the patience. Can you hear?
Yeah.
Is there are you able to hear well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, Geshe, we can hear you well.
The disruptions. Okay. So I guess maybe, yeah, we should start.
Should we start with the refuge in bodhicitta?
Yeah. So maybe I can do, yeah, lead. Okay. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye chodan soge chonam la chanchu padodane Sangye duba Sangye chodan soge chonam la chanchu padodane kapsu Dagi choshen gebe sonam ge dola penje sangye duba sho. So again, I'm very happy to be back again, and to see many of you again. And so for 3 weeks, Friday in this month and 3 Fridays in the next month, we will be going through the Lojong. And as you know, the Lojong or mind training, and there are many different mind training in Lojongs, and we are going to be going through especially here the specific texts, 7 point of mind training by Geshe Sherab. And I think it is also very relevant, I think, in this time where there is a lot of difficult situations around the world, and especially in this country, where our mind are kind of, due to so many situations, there's a lot of kind of, our mind is kind of disturbed to a certain degree, fear, worry, anxiety, maybe frustrations, anger, a lot of, so I think the Lojong, to be able to study and to not only just study, but to really reflect, contemplate in those difficult times can be very, very helpful to keep our mind more calm, more stable, more peaceful, and to be able to have more kindness, and so, yeah. So I think that even though we kind of decided this particular text some time ago, but I think it seems like it's extremely even more relevant at this time and is most needed. So I think you have the text. So, it starts with the homage, homage to the great compassions. So the author, Geshe Sherab, paying homage to his personal daddy, Avalokiteshvara, and the great compassion which Avalokiteshvara represent. And through that, what we know is, even just through the homage, we know this the subject of this text is going to be on the focus on more on the compassion, great compassion, the bodhicitta, you know, and the importance of bodhicitta and compassion is so important. As one of the great Indian master, Chandrakirti, also pay homage to the great compassions in his supplementary middle way, and where he said he paid compassion to the great compassion, which is very important at the very beginning, important at the middle, very important in the end, very important at the very beginning. Like a seed, you know, seed of the plant, very important. So compassion, great compassion, is the very root and very seed of the bodhicitta, the Mahayana practice, very root of the enlightenment to begin with. That's where it all starts. And it is important in the middle, is like for the seed to give birth to the plant, it needs other cause and conditions. We have to keep on watering the seed. If we plant the seed, if you don't keep on watering the seed, then again it will die. Then it will not be able to. The seed will not be able to produce the plant that. And so also for the once we have developed great compassion at the very beginning, and so that not to deteriorate and not to lose it, and in order to maintain that great the bodhicitta and the bodhisattva practice throughout the path, then we need to water all this practice through the compassions, great compassions. So it is like the very important, like the water, nurturing water and fertilizers in the middle. And great compassion is very important at the end. Even when we achieve enlightenment, it is the great compassion that make the enlightenment to benefit and help other sentient beings. Just as when you grow the plant and then when the fruit is produced, then you are able to experience the fruit. In the same way, the way to experience the result of enlightenment by all sentient beings is because of that great compassions. And if you don't have that great compassions, you know, then even you have received, even one have reached that enlightenment, you will not, the sentient beings will not be able to experience the result of that enlightenment. And the sentient beings able to experience the result of enlightenment is because of that great compassions. And so therefore great compassion is very important at the beginning, middle, at the end. And because of that, then here also is pay homage to the great compassions. And the essence of this nectar of advice is in continuity from the Selingpa. So that one explains the source of these teachings, you know, the lineage, the source of that. So all the Buddha's teachings, if we kind of summarize it, if we kind of summarize all the Buddha's teaching, and take into the essence, all the Buddha's teachings is to develop the wisdom and the bodhicitta. And in order to have the bodhicitta mind, we need to have loving kindness and great compassion. And so the essence of all the Buddha's teachings is the method and the wisdom. The method referring to the loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, and the wisdom that relies the emptiness. And so and that is the main subjects of this text. So this particular text is from Geshe Sherab, who wrote a commentary to Geshe Langri Eight Verses of Mind Training. So it is a commentary to the Eight Verses of Mind Training by Geshe Langri. And of course, the Lojong's teachings, it comes from the Buddha. The essence, it comes from the Buddha. You find in sutras, like in Konsek, I think in Konsek, I think there might be a few volumes, 4 volumes maybe. And Dode Pelboche, I think there are around maybe 6 volumes. And those are the texts, sutras that explain the Bodhisattva's practices and path, mainly. And then those are the source from the sutras. And then, Indian commentaries, then you see Nagarjuna Precious Garland, and then, especially Shantideva's Guides to the Bodhisattva Way of Life. Those are the source of these Lojongs, and then definitely here, as the author says, the teaching that he receives is from Geshe Sherab, and then Geshe Sherab, of course, received from Domtemba, and then from Lama Adishas, So then Lama Adisha, who brought to Tibet from India, and Lama Adisha received those teachings mainly from mainly 3 teachers. Dhammakiti or Chodak, or from the Sedlingba, or from Indonesia. Nowadays is Indonesia, that teaches. He spent 12 years with him, studying with him. And then the 2 other teachers, Dhammarakshita, one of another teachers, who has incredible loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta. Because of his incredible love and compassion, bodhicitta, he is able to kind of even cut his flesh and give to others. That is such a incredible, strong compassion, bodhicitta, that has such a master. He has no hesitations to cut his own flesh to feed and to help someone. And so that is one of the teachings is also said, because through constant practice on loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, through that he was able to even have a realization of emptiness through that bodhicitta. And then another main teacher that he received those teachings is Chenpen Alcho. Lama Chenpen Alcho is called the yogi of the materia, or the loving kindness. And that master also has developed such a great compassion and loving kindness and bodhicitta that he is able to take other suffering directly on himself. So mainly he received mainly from those 3 teachers. So Lama Adisha, And then Adisha brought to Tibet. And through there, then so that is the kind of the lineage. So that's why it was continuity from the Selingba. So that gives you a little bit of background of the lineage of these teachings. And then, as I mentioned already before, the main topic, the main subjects, the principal topic, principal subject of this mind training is how to develop and how to practice the two bodhicitta mind, conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta. In other words, the conventional bodhicitta that is developed out of great compassion and loving kindness, and the ultimate bodhicitta, the wisdom emptiness, that is being supported by the bodhicitta and great compassions. So those two, the conventional and ultimate bodhicitta, are the main subjects of this Lojong text. And other practice are like the branch, some as a preliminary practices, some as a how to take those two bodhicitta into everyday life, engaging with the challenges and difficulties when we face it, as well as the advice, commitment, and then advice of the two bodhicittas, Lojong. So that is the main. And as I mentioned, that is the very essence of all the Buddha's teaching, the two bodhicitta. As Nagarjuna said, those oneself or others who ever want to achieve matchless enlightenment, and then one should actualize the very root of that. That is the great compassion, which is very stable as like a Mount Meru, and the bodh, and then and the bodhicitta, and which is and the great compassion and the non-duality wisdom, so just as those who want to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of oneself and benefit of others, then we need to develop those three causes, the great compassion, the bodhicitta, and the wisdom. And that this is the main subject of the Lojong here. And so, and then the subjects is explained in the term of, from the term of point of 7 points. So the 7 points are, the first point is engage in the preliminary practices. Second is training in the actual practice of the two bodhicitta. And third is taking difficulties and circumstances and situation and experiences into the path, and then integrating the practices, all the practices, integrating into life, lifetimes. And then that's fourth one. And the fifth one, the fifth point is the measurement of having trained the mind, or having trained the mind, what are the signs when we have trained the mind? Kind of, it is a way to evaluate how our practice. And then sixth is the commitment of the Lojong mind trainings, and 7 is the advices of the mind trainings. And so these are the 7 points that that text will call for, and so then if you go the first one, that is the training in the preliminary. So in the verse it says, first training all preliminary practices. So preliminary practices for what? Preliminary practice for the training of the true bodhicitta mind, conventional and ultimate bodhicitta mind. In order to train in conventional bodhicitta mind, first we need to engage in the preliminary practices. And the more better foundations and stronger foundation we have of those preliminary practices, then the more effect we will have when we train in the true bodhicitta mind, and less obstacles, more smooth, more easy, and more likely to have the realization of the true bodhicitta mind if we have gone through the preliminary foundations. If we don't have those preliminary foundations, then even we try to meditate and practice on true bodhicitta, then it could become a challenging difficulty, obstacles, and so forth. And so therefore, that is why it's trained in all preliminary practice. So when we talk about preliminary practices, then we can talk about 2 preliminary practice. One, preliminary practice of these instructions, the practice itself, and then preliminary practices of the sessions whenever we try to do any practice on the Lojong's meditations and the preliminary in the sessions. So we can talk about 2 preliminary, one as a preliminary for the instructions itself or the practice itself, and then one preliminary during the session itself. So when we talk about the preliminary for the practice and instruction itself, then the whole practice of the middle scope and the small scope of the lumbering is the preliminary practices. Because the training in the conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta is part of the great capacity of the practice. Within the lumbering, there is a middle capacity or middle scope, I mean small scope, middle scope, and great scope. So the training into the true bodhicitta is part of the great scope. And so as a preliminary, then we need to go through the middle scope and the small scope, the practice of that. The stronger we have a practice of the middle scope and small scope, the more effective it becomes when we engage in the practice of greater scope, such as true bodhicitta. If we don't have good foundation of early, then even we try to meditate, even we try to practice, sometimes we struggle, so we meditate, but there is not really transformations. Conventional or both ultimate bodhicitta, both of them, we struggle. Why? Because we don't have the good foundations of those preliminary practices. And so that is why, and especially in some commentary, especially the preliminary practice of, of course, when we do the extensive, then the whole middle scope and small scope practice is the preliminary practices that we need to train. But if we try to, if someone has gone through the extensive practice, then if you try to do short practices than meditation on precious human rebirth, the nature of samsara, the suffering nature of samsara, and the meditation on law of cause and effect of karma. So those are the preliminary practices that one need to go in, And so again, just to, without going in detail on each of them, just to touch on them, recognizing how fortunate and lucky we are to have this precious human life with all the right conducive condition to practice the Dharma, to practice the true Bodhisattva mind, free from all the obstacles. How fortunate we are, feeling gratitude every day, reflecting, contemplating, and feeling gratitude every day. How lucky to have all these conditions is not easy. It requires a lot of cause and a lot of cause and conditions, which is not easy to gather. And so recognizing that and recognizing how not easy it is to have such precious human life again and again, because in order to have such a precious human life, one of the main cause is a very strong, pure ethical or moral discipline. And we know it's not easy to practice pure ethical or moral discipline. It's not so easy. On top of that, then it need to be supported by practice, such as practice of generosity and pure prayer or dedications. And again, we know those practice are not so because cause is not easy. The result, the precious human rebirth, is also not be easy to find again and again. And therefore, it's not easy to find, but we have found it. And so therefore, we should not waste it. And so it should encourage us with that recognition that I should make it meaningful or not waste it. I should not waste it, and I should make it meaningful. And the way to make meaningful is work with our mind. Practice the Dharma. That means working with our mind, trying to reduce those destructive negative emotions, trying to increase and improve those constructive, helpful emotions. And through that, trying to help and be benefit to others as much as possible. At least trying all our best not to hurt and harm others. And that way we make our life meaningful. Even we can't be much help and benefit to other sentient beings, to the world, at least we don't hurt and harm others. At least we don't create more suffering and pain to others. And through that, we make our life more meaningful. So therefore, and to be able to do that, to be able to work with our mind to reduce those negative emotions, to increase those positive emotions, we need to practice the Dharma. Without that, we can't do it, even if we want to do it. It's not enough just to wish to do it. You need to have the way, the method, how to do it. And it's the Dharma that show us how to do that. And so practicing the Dharma, And not only we need to practice the Dharma, we need to practice now, because death is certain. But the time of death is uncertain. The time of death is so uncertain. There are so many causes and conditions to take our life, external, internal cause and conditions. We don't even have confidence to say and guarantee that we will be alive by tomorrow. Even though from one side of our mind, we think, oh, I'm healthy and I'm feeling well, and definitely I will wake up tomorrow. But you cannot say with 100%, because anything can happen between that. Anything can happen between tomorrow and today. Anything can happen within the next hour, just like it happens to so many people. We don't know what could happen. And so since time of death is so uncertain, we could, our life could end anytime. Therefore, we try to practice the Dharma now without postponing it, because that is the most meaningful to do. That is the most beneficial thing to do, because that is the only one, the Dharma, that is helpful to oneself and helpful to others. Nothing else. When we die, we cannot take our wealth, we cannot take all our families, we cannot take our whatever fame, reputation we have, we cannot take even our body. We leave everything behind. At that time, what we can take is only our practice, all the positive imprint and the karmic potential that we have left in our mental consciousness. And it is the only thing that we can carry on. It is the only thing that can help us at the time of death, after the death, and while we're alive. And so therefore, making a strong determination, not only I need to practice the Dharma, but I need to practice the Dharma now without postponing, because we never know when death will come. It's definitely going to come, but since we don't know when it will come, so I cannot postpone it. I have to practice now whenever I get any opportunity, making most of it, And then after the death, from Buddhist point of view, it doesn't, but our consciousness continue carrying all the karmic imprint, and then through that karmic imprint, and in the next, whether we experience more suffering or whether we experience more happiness, it depends on our karmic seed. If we have more virtues and virtues karmic seed, as a result, we experience more happiness, more joy. And if we have more negative karmic seed, then as a result of that, then we experience more painful and suffering experiences. And that is the law of cause and effect, law of cause and effect. Our own unwholesome virtues, unwholesome actions or non-virtuous actions create our own painful experience. On the other hand, our own virtuous actions, our own wholesome actions create and produce our pleasant and joyful experiences. That being the case, we try to accumulate and create as much positive karma, wholesome and virtuous actions as much as possible. And we try to abandon creating any kind of unwholesome, non-virtuous action, negative karma as much as possible. And so due to our positive karma, due to our virtuous positive karma, wholesome and virtuous actions, even we do have a better rebirth in the futures. But still, as long as we are in samsara, no matter where we are, we'll continue to experience sufferings. Whether you are born as a rich or whether you are born as a poor, whether you are born in a developed country or whether you are born in undeveloped countries, whether you are famous or whether you are not famous, whether you have a lot of friends or whether you don't have friends, still we continue to experience sufferings as long as our rebirth is samsaric rebirth. As long as we're in samsara, there's no escape from the suffering. Sometimes we have physical suffering. Sometimes when we don't have physical suffering, we have emotional sufferings. Sometimes even when we don't have any physical and emotional suffering, but there's a karmic seed, the potential there to manifest any time. So even though I'm feeling good at the moment, physically, emotionally, but that could change like that because there is so much karmic seed there that could arise due to certain cause and condition coming together. And that could change my physical state as well as my emotional state. And I could have physical suffering, I could have emotional suffering, I could have both of them. So therefore, even when we are not suffering, obviously, but the cause and conditions are there to manifest anytime. That itself is a suffering. It's like, you have some chronic disease and you have symptoms. Sometimes you have symptoms, headache and fever and maybe nausea or stomach problems. And sometimes we don't have those symptoms. You feel good, but still the disease is still there. So again, that symptom can manifest anytime. So that is it, as long as we're in samsara. So even when you don't have those symptoms, as long as you have chronic disease, so how can you feel so, life is so great, Because that can change. That can just, because the disease has not been cured. As long as disease has not been cured, the symptom sometimes manifests, sometimes doesn't manifest. So when the symptom doesn't manifest, even though it's not manifesting now, but it could manifest anytime because the chronic disease is still there. It has not been cured. So similarly that, and as long as we have those karmic imprint, and as long as we have the delusions, as long as our being, as long as our life is under the control of the delusions and karma, that itself is suffering. When you have no freedom on yourself, your own mind, your own life, when our own life, when our own mind, when ourself is kind of driven by another force, that is the delusions and the karma, that itself is a suffering, because that itself is the prisoner, Because when you are if we are prisoner, how can we be being a prisoner itself is a suffering, and so we are prisoner of our own karma and our own delusions, and so therefore, until we stop the karma and delusions, there is no, real happiness. There's no true, lasting happiness until we stop the delusion and the karma. And so therefore, as long as we're in samsara, still we are not free from the delusion and the karma. And as long as we are not free from the delusion and karma, that itself is suffering. So with that understanding, then it should inspire us. With that understanding, it should inspire us to wanting to free from the samsara, wanting to free from the karma and the delusion, especially the delusions, because the delusion is the very root of the karma. And inspiring us to generate a strong inspirations or renunciations, the wish to achieve total freedom from the delusions. So to develop a strong wish for total freedom, nirvana, liberations from the samsara itself, and the cause of samsara, and the karma and the delusion, and especially the delusion, which is the very root of all of them. And so it should, by meditating on the suffering nature of samsara, it should inspire us to develop that. And it should help us to not be so much attached to samsaric experiences, by seeing at the end, the true nature of those are sufferings. So it should help us not to be any kind of, be attached to the samsaric experience, samsaric worldly things and worldly experiences. And if we're not attached to them, then we will experience more joy and more happiness. Samsaric things, experiences, and our life, we will have less anxiety, we will have less fear, we will have a less worry, and so we will be able to enjoy more. There will be more calm, more peace, more tranquility in our life, in our mind. On the other hand, when you have strong attachment, then we have more fear, we have more worry, we have more anxiety. And all this fear, worry, anxiety lead us to become that lead to anger and hatred and all those different negative emotions, and make our life much more miserable, much more painful, much more undesirable. So those are mainly those 4 preliminary practices: precious human rebirth, death and impermanent, and the karma, and reflecting on the suffering nature of the samsara. So these are the training preliminary. So those are the training preliminary in terms of the preliminary of these instructions, practice, teachings. And then when it comes to preliminary in terms of the sessions, when you are trying to engage on, let's lojong, or whether we are trying to meditate on loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, or we are trying to meditate on emptiness, whatever those meditation we are trying to do, that will be the main practice of meditations. But preliminary, what you need to do at the beginning of that, the preliminary is, we try to quiet our mind, calm our mind by working with our breath. And once you have quiet your mind, calm your mind, then you try to, extensively or in a very extensive refuge field, or very short one by seeing your guru and the deity and all the Buddhas, inseparable oneness, and in front of you, above you, and then we take refuge in bodhicitta. If possible, you can do 3 times, if not 1 time, refuge in bodhicitta, and you can do 4 immeasurable. Again, there are longer versions, shorter versions, and then you can do 7 limb practices. There are longer version, medium version, very short versions, depending on your time, your sessions. So if you don't have so much time, you can do some of those very, very short versions. If you have time, you can do more longer versions. And then having done the 7 limb practice, again, if you have time, you can do the mandala, long or short, and then you will make a request to the guru and the deity, to bless us, to inspire us, to guide us, to develop these realizations. Whatever meditation you are doing, please, from depth of your heart, we make a heartfelt request to the guru and the deity, inseparable guru, inseparable from all the Buddhas, from the deities. Please bless me, please guide me, please show me the way, please give me encouragement so that I can develop all the realizations of the Lamrim, and especially the realization or whatever practice we're trying to do. For example, if we are trying to meditate on emptiness, to have this realization of emptiness. If we are trying to meditation on bodhicitta, conventional bodhicitta, making strong requests to have that realization of bodhicitta mind. If we are meditating on loving kindness, please bless me to have this realization of loving kindness. Or if you are doing compassion, please bless me to develop this meditation on great compassion. So we make that strong request, and then you can visualize kind of the light, white light nectar flowing, cleansing and purifying all your negative karma, delusion, all the obscurations, and especially all the obscuration to develop these particular realizations, and receiving all the realization, and particularly this particular realization, whatever you are trying to meditate on. And once you have done that, then the guru, come in top of your crown and enter your heart, and then remain in the lotus of your heart. And so that is the preliminary practice of the sessions. So you do that at the very beginning, and then whatever you need to meditate on, whatever subject you are meditating, whatever, then you spend more time on that particular subjects. And then at the end of the meditation, then we'll try to dedicate. We'll try to dedicate for the benefit of all sentient beings, to be able to develop, again, all the realization, and especially whatever realization we're trying to develop for oneself, for all sentient beings, and for the well-being of all sentient beings, to be able to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So then we do then dedication. So in that way, so that is the preliminary of the sessions. So I'm wondering whether you have any questions. And if you have any questions, you can either unmute or you can write, send me by chat. And so, yes, please.
Geshe, thank you so much. I have a question. When you mentioned that delusion are the very root of karma, does karma, by karma, do you mean black karma and white karma, or just black karma?
Okay. When we talk about karma, of course, there's negative karma and positive karma. Okay, so definitely there's no doubt all the negative karma are created by the delusions. And within the positive karma, there is a contaminated karma, non-contaminated karma. And the contaminated karma is also created by the ignorance, the fundamental ignorance. So in a way, it is created by the delusions. And so the negative karma and contaminated karma, both of them create. And contaminated karma is that lead us into the suffering in the samsara. Like, for example, when we create, when you don't have realization of emptiness, and because we have a strong ignorance, and so that is the very fundamental. In the depth, it comes from that ignorance. But immediate motivation is a good motivations. Immediate motivations and positive motivations. Out of that positive motivation into the practice, such as keeping our ethical discipline, our precepts, our vows, or in trying to refrain from 10 non-virtuous actions, trying to engage in 10 virtuous actions with their positive motivations. But since we don't have an understanding of emptiness, still deep, it is still coming from a certain level of ignorance. And so even though immediate motivation is positive, but still on the deeper level, there is ignorance. So therefore, the action that we created by that, it's still contaminated karma. And therefore, because of that, it becomes a cause of samsara instead of becoming a cause of liberations. And so therefore, due to that, instead of freeing from the samsara, it helped us to take rebirth within samsara, but in a better rebirth, such as human rebirth, So it's a better rebirth, it's a higher rebirth within the samsara realm, but it still is within the samsara. And so that is contaminated karma. But once you have realization of emptiness directly, then you don't create any more of contaminated karma. Of course, you don't create negative karma, but you don't even create any kind of positive contaminated karma. And so you can create positive karma, but it's non-contaminated. And so that is where I was saying, when we talk about that, the delusion being the root of the karma, negative karma and the contaminated karma, because those are the two, the negative karma is the cause for the three lower rebirth, and then contaminated positive karma cause for the three high rebirth within the samsara. And so that is the cause of those karma. So is that clear, George?
Yes, good.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, maybe there is one. Let me see if there is. Could you please repeat the 7 point of training the mind? Okay. The first point is engaging the preliminary practices. Second is the actual practice of the bodhicitta. So two bodhicitta, you know. And then third is transforming adversary situations or circumstances into the path. Fourth is integrating the practices into the lifetime, you know, integrating all the practice while we're alive and at the time of death. So as you go more detailed, but basically integrating the practice, all the practice into the life in one lifetime, in one life. And then the fifth is the signs of measurement of having trained the mind training, you know. What are the signs, you know, when we have trained our lojong and when we make some success in the practice of lojong, then what are that they are, you know. So there are some way through that, then we can know, oh, you know, through that it can help us to evaluate where we are, you know, in terms of our practice, in terms of our lojong practice. So that is, I think, yeah, I think I don't know exact what the word is used, but it's a measurement of having trained the mind training. And then sixth one is the commitment of the mind training of the lojong, and seven is the advices of the mind training. What was the what was it called, the fifth one, in terms of some different sense? Actually, mind training. Oh, okay. I think okay. My friend here says, Steve here said the measure of mind training. So I think that is what is translated. Measure of mind training. So is that clear with those seven? Okay.
Geshe Sherab?
Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
I don't know if you can hear me, can you?
Yes, I can hear. Yes, I can hear.
Just a short question, maybe it's not such a short answer. How do I meditate on compassion when compassion is an expression and it's an activity that we express naturally? So how do you meditate on something that you express naturally?
Okay. I think, first of all, I think, again, I'm talking from the Buddhist point of view and from Buddhist teachings of the mind psychology. And in those teachings, compassion is one part of mental factors. So when we talk about mind, when we learn about the subject of mind, then we talk about the primary mind and the 51 mental factors, and within the 51 mental factors, there are virtuous mental factors, delusional mental factors, and more neutral mental states. And so compassion is one of those virtues, mental factors, mental state. And so, and compassion is described as a mental state that you wish for the well-being and happiness of others. When you have the wish, or when you have the wish for the well-being and happiness of others. So that is described as a loving kindness, for example. Was the question compassion or loving kindness? Compassion.
Right.
So yeah. So on the other hand, compassion is described similarly a wish or mental state, a wish to the wish to see the others who are suffering to be free from the suffering. So that is the mental state, the wish, the sincerely wish and aspirations that you want to see the others to be free from the suffering and cause of suffering. So that is described.
But it manifests as an action, right?
It could manifest into actions, or necessarily sometimes it doesn't manifest into the actions. It is a mental state, and that mental state can manifest. Most time it will manifest into the actions. But in some cases, even you have the wish, maybe someone might not take the actions for different reasons. For some time, maybe there's nothing I can feel for someone, but maybe there is nothing I could do for that person. So therefore, it does not necessarily manifest in the actions. And sometimes there is something I can do for someone. I feel that way, and there is something I can do about it, and then that manifests in action, doing that into that. But sometimes, sometimes there are certain situations you really feel for that person, you have the compassions, but there is nothing much you can do. There is nothing you can do in actions, except of course we can do prayers, we can still wish them best, and that maybe if we take that as action, then definitely that will be actions. Other than that, maybe there's nothing much other than that we can do much. And so and for example, someone who is in a deep meditation on compassions in his room, her room, cave, and they can feel compassion for each and every sentient being that is in the world and outside of the world. But in terms of the actions, they are not taking any action at this point directly because they are not in the world at this point. But they can feel they have that compassion, the unbearable feeling of the pain and suffering for others. And of course, when there is any opportunity in the future, when they get opportunity, and they will try to help, and that will manifest in action. But immediately while they are there, that might not manifest in immediate actions. So how do we meditate? Yeah?
I just said Tujiche.
Oh, Tujiche. Yes, my pleasure. And then the other is, meditation is trying to, we all have a little bit of compassions, at the moment. We all have that feelings. The feeling of unbearable pain and suffering of others, especially that we have that feeling towards someone, our dear one, near ones, friends, or someone when we see the obvious pain and suffering of someone, you know. But we might not have that feeling for everyone at the moment. And so through meditations, through that meditation, we try to work on our mind to expand that feeling, that compassion to not only our near one and dear one, but to be able to expand beyond that, to expand to those even who are more strangers, neutral to us. And then slowly, slowly go even beyond that and to expand to even those with whom we have conflict, to whom we have a difficulty, with whom we might not have agree, to whom we have a disagreement on every different issues, but still we can have compassion for them and trying to expand that to, and meditation through we try to expand to each and every sentient being, because we have this small compassion, but it's not fully blossom, it is not fully grown up. So that is what meditation do, to expand that bigger and bigger, stronger and stronger. And so that is the meditation. That is the purpose of doing meditation, is to expand. And at the same time, sometimes our compassion at the moment is sometimes kind of, a little bit kind of mixed with attachment. Sometimes there is some kind of conditions, expectations, but also through meditation and training, we try to develop the compassion beyond that kind of attachments, beyond that kind of with any condition and expectation, to go beyond any condition and expectations, and from being partial to impartial, and from being not so strong to more stronger and stronger. And so that is why meditation really helps to do all of that. Okay.
Geshe, I have a
Yes, please.
question. Hello, thank you so much for these teachings. So regarding the preliminary practices, a couple of questions. One is, would the non-jros fit under this section at all?
Yes, and yes. Is your question finished?
No, the other question is,
continue. So,
thank you. I'm a little confused about the difference between preliminary for the practice itself and the preliminary practices during the sessions.
Okay. So we talk about the preliminary during the sessions. And when you talk about the preliminary of this practice, or this training instructions, then we're talking about, because this practice is part of, within the Lamrim is a high scope, because the main practice of this lojong is the training into bodhicitta. So that is the main body of this practice, and others are kind of supporting factor for that main body of the practice. So that being the main practice, being the training of high scope, so therefore the preliminaries is the middle and small scope. So that is the main kind of preliminary when we're talking about here, in terms of the within the practice itself. And then for the success of the training, great scope, middle scope, and small scope, then we engage into the normal, known as, special kind of ngondros or preliminary practices. In some tradition, in most of the Tibetan traditions, in all different lineage, we have 4 ngondros, 4 different preliminary practices. As a part of practice for purification and accumulation of merit and guru yoga, part of that 4 preliminary practices. and especially in some of the teachings on Gelug, then there are 9 preliminary practices, especially in Southern. So that is the preliminary of the whole Lumbrim practice itself. And here is mainly referring to the preliminary as the practice of higher scope. That means the preliminary is middle and small scope. But even for that, then there is preliminary, and that is the normal 4 preliminaries, you know. So is that clear?
Thank you,
Jennifer?
Geshe. I think so. So when you were talking about the seeing Guru as Buddha, four measurable, 7 limb, etc., is that the preliminary practices, the second part during the sessions for the Mahayana school?
Yeah, that one we can do with any meditations, you know. Any meditation, we start with that. Whether we are trying to meditate on shamatha, whether we are trying to meditate on vipassana, emptiness, whether we are trying to meditate on loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, or whether we are trying to meditate on any other subjects, pleasure, human rebirth, whether we are trying to meditate on death, impermanent, whatever, or karma, whatever meditation that we are trying to do, main meditation at the very beginning of that sessions, we start with that. And so that is a preliminary of the sessions, that particular session. So there is the main meditations, and before the main meditations, then we do those practice. And then at the end, we do the dedications. And so that was what I was explaining.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions? Comments? Sharing?
Thank you, Geshe. I'm saving my questions for later.
Okay. So does that mean we are ready to dedicate?
We are, Geshe. Thank you.
Okay.
Jennifer will share her screen.
Okay. So again, while we recite the dedications, try to feel each of those words while we try to recite slowly. Try to feel the meaning of those words as much as possible. May all beings everywhere, plagued by the suffering of body and the mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtues of suffer, commit evil, or evil fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see form and the deaf hear sound. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth, those who with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May the medicine be effective. Whatever disease there are in the world, may they never occur again. Oh, I think I missed somewhere there. Yeah, may the medicine be effective and wholesome prayer bear fruit. May all who be free from the elements. Whatever disease there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightening cease to be afraid, and those bound be free. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other for as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain. Until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And also we can dedicate, especially in these countries, to find more compassion in this difficult time, and to be able to come together with the compassions and with in a more peaceful, more harmonious way, and to be healed, and to work better, compassionate way. So thank you very much, everyone. And next time, I think today I'm having a little bit problem with my my wireless internet. So that is why we're a little bit late. And also now it is, I think, maybe I'm not sure whether you are able to hear for ladies and whether there was a disruption or not. But definitely we'll work on next time. We are working on that. Good night, everyone. Good night. Thank you
Good
very
night.
much.
Thank you, Geshe
Good
Sherab.
night,
Bye-bye.
Geshe-la.
Thank
Thank
you.
See you next week.
Could I just
Thank
mention?
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jennifer, go ahead.
Oh, for the group, anybody interested? So tomorrow is the very auspicious day of Labab Duchen, where karmic effects are multiplied 100 million times. So Venerable Amy will be leading a special practice from 4 to 6 p.m. If anyone wants to join. I don't know, Sinead, if there's a website available.
There is. I was
can-
just quickly copying it.
Thank you. But it's a fantastic time to create merit. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I just posted the details in the chat, but if you go to the Shantideva website, then you will see all the different pujas that we will be doing tomorrow.
Thank
4 to 6.
you.
Thank you. Good night. Good night. Have a
Thank you. Good night. Bye, everyone.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank you.
See you next time. Bye.